Yeah, I
All
did not
righty.
know the ad break was coming. Sorry about that.
You're good. You're good. Again, thank you to eBay for being our current sponsor. Please go and check out the eBay link as we are finally, even though we are much, much smaller, almost equal to Mark because we have a link for online
There.
shopping.
Oh yeah, there you go. You got to dream big, right?
Mark's the
And
guy. That's a
and
high bar.
and eBay is a fine quality website and marketplace for goods and services. So there you go. Okay, so trap games. So I look at this in two ways. Of course, your traditional trap game definition of a game that you don't expect to be tough and is. And it's tough to really define that because Michigan's schedule is, let's be honest, pretty easy, except for Penn State and Ohio State. However, I see two potential candidates here in this first season. One is Minnesota. Minnesota, is one of those games that's played at a point in the season where they're going there. While they are replacing a lot of pieces on offense, their defense is actually, I would argue, better than people think it is. When I did the simulation of this game, it came down to one possession at the end of the game. So I literally had to put the starters back in because I had the backups in, and Minnesota just started racking up points, and I had to bring the starters back in to win the game in the end. So I think PJ Fleck, he's a great coach. He's going to coach them up every single time. And Michigan always has these games, like one or two a year, where they just keep it closer than they should. Illinois coming down to the last play of the game. Jake Moody, shout out. But so I could see Minnesota being a problem. I could see Maryland, who Jason, I believe, pointed out in the chat, or Mike Fort, that Maryland, Maryland, I don't, it's tough for me to call that a trap game because Maryland, I think, is considered a pretty good team now.
Mm-hmm.
I have them going
They've
9-3.
replaced Indiana from being good a couple years ago. Just if
They are
maybe Maryland will be consistently good. Actually, though,
they are in the Indiana position of keeping things closer than they should be. The 2022 game was a tight ball game. Here's the thing: Maryland, we're getting Maryland close to the end in game 11. Because of that, we know that Maryland has a tendency to not stay healthy. So when you play Maryland in September, we even, it's a meme, September Maryland, right? They just like beat teams that you didn't think that they were going to be able to beat. But Maryland in late November or mid-November can be a little bit easier. Although Ohio State struggled against Maryland, Talia Tagovailoa, until he got injured in that game, played I'd say the game of his life. He was incredibly good. There is one extenuating circumstance with Maryland, and it's somebody named Josh Gaddis. So for those of you who don't remember Josh Gaddis, he used to be the OC for Michigan, and kind of got demoted to wide receiver slash. They kind of went to the Stanford playbook in 2021, Harbaugh's playbook. And then he goes to Miami, decides to make Tyler Van Dyke, literally spin around and like hand the ball, like do the option with his back turned. Taking way too long to develop plays, running 180-pound running backs up the teeth of Texas A&M and other big teams' defenses. I'm sorry, but you can't treat everything like it's Hassan Haskins running it up, because you don't have the Joe Moore award-winning O-line at Miami. My point in saying all of this is that now he's at Maryland, and his old buddy. That they feuded, about who was calling the plays, Loxley or Gaddis, at Alabama. And now for some reason, I guess he's just, they patched it up and he's now the offensive coordinator. But let's be honest, that's Loxley's offense. Gaddis is basically relegated to, he's coaching the QBs, which means he's coaching Talia. And that could be problematic because I have not been convinced of his ability to be a competent offensive mind and offensive coach. So because of that, I do think Maryland will still have a lot of talent, and therefore I have to put it as a trap game. The other two aren't trap games because they're good teams, right? Penn State and Ohio State. Those are the matchups that I think most people have circled as these are the toughest matchups for Michigan. So for those reasons, for trap games, I put Maryland #1, Minnesota #2.
Oh boy.
So I guess now it's Mike's turn to do the trap games for Ohio State. I feel like there are more trap games for Ohio State than Michigan is, because Michigan, it's like John said, it's Penn State and it's Ohio State, and then a couple other teams maybe could be a little tricky for Ohio State. Who you got as the trap games?
So I'm going to start with this. All right, you're half right for Michigan, I think, because for Michigan, I think it's Purdue and it's Maryland because it's right before the big games. So that's usually about when it's like, bring the level down, because we should have beat the ever-loving crap out of Maryland in 2018 with Dwayne Haskins. But due to his heroics, we barely won.
It will help out Michigan, though, that they don't have Rondell Moore at Purdue.
Yes, guys, I know it's Purdue, and Purdue is crap this year. But for whatever reason, they tend to show up for the big ones, which is why, in my opinion, the big ones for Ohio State could, as follows, potentially be Western Kentucky, because it's right before Notre Dame. I don't think it will be, but it's potential, depending on how everything is going on the offensive side of the ball. Purdue, because it's right before Penn State. Wisconsin, because Ohio State beat Penn State in 2017, and it was a heck of a game. And then they come back the following week and get absolutely destroyed, ripping my guts out by the Iowa Hawkeyes. So Wisconsin. And then Minnesota could be a trap game because I absolutely love PJ Fleck, but I'm sorry, I'm going to be cheering to just Ohio State just punch your face in.
I have to address Purdue.
I think there's a bigger trap game in the state of Indiana for Ohio State.
I mean,
week 1.
I mean, and that, by the way, that's a barometer on McCord and how that team is gelling on the level of defeat of Indiana. Because if it's close by like a touchdown or two versus if you guys just get whooped, that's going to determine. But I need to talk about Purdue for a minute. So if you guys have ever seen, there's a show on HGTV. It's called Fixer Upper. And a lot of times on that show, they take this the house, they bring it to the studs, and they start all over again. And then there's a lot of shiplap and all kinds of things on there. Purdue is Fixer Upper on steroids. They lost everybody. They lost the head coach and offensive play caller. They lost their quarterback. They lost their best wide receiver talent. They lost everything but the kitchen sink. Purdue is lost. Now, I actually think that Ryan Walters has done a lot of good in the recruiting game. Thanks, Mike. Yes, because I watched these voluntarily. No, I got dragged along for the ride.
I don't think I've ever watched HGTV in my life.
Yes. I had to watch quite a bit in my we won't go into it. But my point in saying that is Purdue is going to be a 4-8 football team, and that's my prediction for 4-8. Yeah, Property Brothers I enjoyed actually. So 4-8. So without all of these pieces, I honestly just don't see Purdue coming into the Big House, which is one of the toughest places to play in college football. The noise of 100,000 football fans is just, if you aren't on your calls, and this is, I get that Hudson Card is he's an experienced quarterback. He'll probably be able to manage it okay. But you're just replacing everybody. Yeah. I wish I was married. I'm not, but I did have a long-term person who that's why I had to watch a lot of that. So
what's funny to me is that Purdue, despite all that they've lost, I'm seeing a lot of people, and Grant in the West, last year the West, I get that, but I still see a lot of people that think Purdue is going to have a better season than Indiana, despite the fact that Purdue lost so much. That's really interesting. For sure. But I think Indiana's gonna be a little bit tougher for Michigan and Ohio State than Purdue. I think Indiana will be a little tougher. But I mean, that's just my 2 cents. Not a lot, but just a little bit there.
I think you might be right. Listen, Purdue is going to have a rough year. Mm-hmm. They're cruising for a bruise. They just are. So I don't know.
I mean, the only other thing would be that Indiana is close because it's the first game of the year, and then we go to Purdue and we just mollywop them. I mean, I see Purdue because Purdue, when the big teddy bear boys like to come into town, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, for whatever reason, they could suck complete and utter doo-doo. But the crowd shows up, the fans show up, they show out, they're loud. Mm-hmm. You talk about a home environment. Purdue is known when it comes to the big games to have a home environment that is hard to play with.
That Penn State game was great last year. Fantastic. Even though they lost. Actually picked them to win that game, and they lost. I thought that they would get the upset there. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, Indiana's not going to be fantastic next year. I just feel like, Indiana overall has, a little bit more upside going their way than Purdue. I think they'll actually, cause a little bit, some trouble. I mean, 2-10. I mean, yeah, okay. I don't know.
It's in Bloomington. The last time we played there, it was mid-season, ended up being 54-7. Probably should have been a lot higher than that. But I think there's enough there.
Yeah, Penix was out. Yeah.
Penix was out. We took Tuttle out the game. We literally took his head off.
That was bad. hey, you got Jack Tuttle now, John, so.
Hey, yeah. Apparently winning the backup job.
Yeah, I mean, hey, being a backup at Michigan is better than getting destroyed at Indiana, I guess. I mean, that's okay.
And I will point out there's a difference between giving people a tougher battle and the final prediction score. So, like, I actually think that Indiana, a lot of people are saying 2-10. That is my official Indiana prediction is 2-10. But I think that they could play some of these teams closer than Purdue because Purdue has some really gimme games on their schedule.
It's like, for example, I mean, I've seen the other night, I was talking on the Voice of College Football, like some people said that Louisville could be a dark horse, really good team, like top 25 team. Maybe if they go 11-1, they'll have a shot at the playoff. It's because Louisville's schedule is a lot easier. That's why the record, you are what your record says you are is not accurate. I mean, Indiana could be a better football team than a lot of 6-6 teams in other conferences being 3-9. They're in the Big Ten playing a top 10, tough schedule, and it's based on how competitive they are. I mean, Indiana back in 2017, 2018 went 5-7 2 years in a row, and I mean, they were really competitive. I mean, that Michigan game in 2018 was fantastic. Michigan won. It was a really great game. Peyton Ramsey was solid, a very underrated player. But, yeah, I mean, again, no one cares about Indiana here. It's just I think Indiana will provide some tough challenges for Michigan, Ohio State. Hopefully they're good games. You want more competitive games. Even if at the end of the day, Michigan, Ohio State do win, by like 21. You want it to be close.
Well, didn't Indiana? It was like 10-10 until in the last game against Michigan, the first half. So
Yeah, and then
you
Connor
guys
Bazelak got
contended,
destroyed in the second half.
and then but it's you at least got the first half to be like, okay, we're keeping it tough against Michigan.
Kept the ratings high on Fox for a little bit longer.
keep it high. Yep.
So I guess is there any more thoughts on trap games before I guess that we're basically about done?
I don't think so.
So we're good. So it was a fantastic show. You guys both did a great job. Nobody was getting upset at each other. We're all having a great time. See, Michigan and Ohio State fans can talk about their teams without getting mad. This is living proof. And even talking about Indiana and Rutgers and other teams that struggle a lot, it's okay. It's all in good fun. College football is the best. So it was definitely, thanks everyone for being here. This was a great show. It was awesome. Thanks, guys, for having me on as well to moderate this episode 1. It was great, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Real quick, just want to remind everybody, so you guys can find me, DM me on Twitter at John Diadamo, JOHNDADAMO. I host Michigan Wolverines Live